Okay, I'm going to talk about democracy a little bit. So, you know, in the United States, we're technically a republic, right? But a republic is a type of democracy. A lot of people like to kind of say that we're a republic as if it's some kind of gotcha. But the truth is a republic is a type of democracy where instead of the citizens voting on policy directly, they elect politicians. They elect representatives to represent our interests. Okay, so if you look around, though, most people will tell you that our politicians are not representing our interests. So, what that insinuates is that we're voting for the wrong people. And that's the thing. It's like if you go to the ballot box and you vote for people and your problems don't get fixed, then you should put two and two together and realize that you're voting for the wrong people. But the problem is that in this country, a lot of people like to blame the other party, right? They like to blame the Democrat or the Republican Party. Meanwhile, they're cheerleading for their own party. But in reality, we know that both of these parties are corrupt, right? No, that's not to say every politician and every representative is corrupt. There are definitely some good representatives out there, but by and large, these representatives, they are representing the interests of corporations, okay? Because the corporations fund, well, they lobby and they fund the campaigns of those politicians, right? So the politicians turn around and basically support the policies that support the profits of those corporations. It checks out, right? It makes perfect sense. But here's the thing. Let's say you go to the ballot box every November or whatever, and you vote, and again, you notice that the politicians are not working for you. Say you're voting third party. Say you are out of the Democrat Republican paradigm that's destroying this country, but no, the third party candidates aren't winning. So what do? Well, say it takes 15 minutes to vote, and say you work 2,000 hours a week or 2,000 hours a year. Sorry. So, in other words, it takes you 1/8,000th of the time to vote as it does to make your living, right? That's about as effective as your vote may ever be. It is 1/8,000th as effective as all of the time you're spending working, right? And let me explain why. It's because we don't just vote at the ballot box. We vote by the way we spend our time. The way you spend your time is what was it, 8,000 times more important than how you vote. So if you become complacent and you accept this poverty wage that your employer is giving you, then you're going to you're going to end up not you're going to end up poor, right? It checks out. If you sit here and wait for the government to fix your problems, but you are just accepting these poverty wages, there's kind of a disconnect here, right? So what you need to do is you need to join those unions. You need to threaten those labor strikes. And in that process, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to demand the true value of your labor back to you. Now, there's a lot of capitalists who will argue that it's the employees who should be grateful for having the employment opportunities that the employers, the owners, offer them, right? This is obviously complete bullshit, okay? And any capitalist who's telling you that is just a tool through and through. But why is that? Well, it's because without the employees, there would be no profits. Without the employees, there would be no production of goods and services, nor would there be anyone buying those goods and services, right? So the point here is that the employees, the people, the laborers, the working class, they they are the ones producing everything. If they vote with their time, if they threaten these labor strikes and these labor unions, and they start these labor unions, then they're going to take back the true value of their labor. And they don't even need the government to do it. All they need is organization among themselves. So, beyond that, though, again, you vote with your time. What are some other ways you vote with your time? Well, let's say you are watching TV or you're watching YouTube. You're watching something with advertisements. again, you're voting with your time. We have huge advertising markets, just ginormous. I mean, the three biggest social media companies, what are they? Like Facebook, YouTube, or I don't know, Twitter maybe, or X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, all of these, they all run on ad revenue. Google. So they run on ad revenue, and what that means is that by watching those ads, you're paying these corporations. And if these corporations are not paying their employees fairly, then you're contributing to that. Again, it's like if you choose to watch the ads, you're voting with your time. So what do? Well, you use ad block. I mean, it's a simple solution there. And maybe you're not tech savvy enough to figure that one out, but I I don't ever want any ads on my videos. If there's an ad on my video, please let me know. I don't think there ever would be. But it's like, who is advertising? It's large corporations that are selling you products, and in all likelihood they are exploiting the labor of their employees, as every large corporation does. Now, maybe Google's paying their engineers plenty of money, right? But what about the people mining the silicon that makes the chips that Google uses, or something like that? The point is that every one of these large corporations, they are at the top. They are the biggest corporations because they are exploiting labor somewhere. There is no morally there's no moral large corporation, major corporation in the Fortune 500. That just doesn't exist. It's because in order for them to be in the Fortune 500, they have to be exploiting labor efficiently. That's what capitalism does. It encourages the efficiency, or it encourages companies to efficiently exploit labor. And as an employee, as a working class citizen, you have to vote with your time. You have to strike, and you have to join labor unions. You have to organize across the culture divides and across the political divides. You have to forget the Trump sign or the Biden sign in your fellow employee's yard. You just have to forget about it. And maybe it's hard to do. Maybe it's hard to see through a pro-choice versus pro-life debate. Maybe it's hard to accept your fellow employee's opinion on trans rights. But if you don't, the alternative is rising wealth inequality. And rising wealth inequality leads to poverty, right? It leads to crime, it leads to violence, and eventually that violence, it backfires on everyone. Eventually you are the one who is a victim of the violence. That's the thing. When the revolution hits, a violent revolution anyway, what happens is the violence is indiscriminate. People don't care who they're committing violence against. They don't care who they're robbing to eat food for that next day. They don't care. And if the working class doesn't catch on to this before we get to that point, then what's going to happen is we're going to have a civil war in effect, and nobody wants that. We want a revolution, but we want it to be a peaceful economic revolution, and that starts by voting with your time. Okay, again, if you're watching a football game, literally just switch the station on when the ads come on, and maybe it doesn't make a huge difference, but you got to do everything you can do. The thing is when you watch an ad, you are basically being programmed, perhaps, to buy that product. The people that buy the ad space, the corporations that buy the ad space, they are selling the idea of that product or service. And you best bet that there are people who fall for that idea and end up buying that product or service. And by doing that, you're failing. You're not doing a very good job at voting with your time. So start those labor unions, start those labor strikes. And the thing about the labor strikes or the labor unions, is that there's a lot of labor markets, that don't have developed unions in them. And the reason for that is because they are labor markets with high labor turnover. Okay, and what that means is that there's never enough organization to get those labor unions, instilled in those markets. but you have to do it, because if you don't do it, then the alternative is, well, the alternative is rising wealth inequality and revolution. Again, just realize that you don't just vote at the ballot box. You vote with your time, every moment of every day. And if you are watching an ad, if you're working and you're working for poverty wages, you're voting every moment of every day. The amount of time that you take to actually vote is one. If you work 40,000 hours a week, and again, or sorry, you work 2,000 hours a year and you vote in 15 minutes, that vote is about 1/8,000th as potent as all of the voting you do with your time every year working. You can't be too complacent, because what happens is these people who at the top, these corporations who are hell-bent on maximizing profits, they are very organized. They are not complacent, and you have to be equally as organized and better and beyond than they are. And if you're not, you're gonna get shafted. That's how this world works. So think about that, okay? Always realize that you're voting with your time. Thanks for watching.